Art is anything that comes from within you, that you put out there. And if you want to say it's art, it's art. It's anything you want to put out. You could collect cans on the road, and because it means something to you and you see it as something else, you turn it and put it out there. If it moves you, art should move you in some form. My art means to me that I am doing what the universe wants me to do, or else I wouldn't still be here doing it. I mean, my parents wanted me to be a doctor or lawyer or something like that, and I'm here still doing, never knew I'd survive, but I'm still doing it here. So for me, my art means that I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing at this time. Some people will say I grew up in Maroon Land. Some people will say I grew up in Jamaica. Some people will say I grew up in the woods, the river. I'm a child of the universe. When anybody asks, I'm a child of the universe. I belong to everyone. I came to Canada, it was in the 60s, the early 60s, and I went to Hamilton, Ontario, and I spent time there doing a lot of stuff, and then we moved to Kingston. This is the first house I lived in Kingston. And that's where I did most of my dyeing. All the work, the show I did at KAAI was done in that room. I was doing textiles, mostly textiles, traditional African work with dyes, natural dyes, cassava paste, silk screen, all the different textiles combined. I did my piece fabric market here, which has all the different textile techniques on it. The privileges I had growing up in Jamaica and Maroon Land is not the same privilege I have in Canada. I had no privilege, nothing in Canada. And I had children who needed to be looked after and be protected. So I got involved in everything. So being the only black person in many of these places, in those days on television, or whatever, movies, the only thing you saw of black people, they were servants, and I remember going to Odessa school, my eldest daughter was getting a really hard time at school, and so I got her to tell me what was going on. And it turned out, they would put their foot on her desk and say, tie my shoelaces, clean my shoes, that's what you're here for, and stuff like that, because it was the first time they were dealing with a black person,
Auntie Winsom has experienced some real hard life, as we say in Jamaica. The trauma of the painful experiences that we go through in life can sit within our bodies and really destabilize our sense of balance with the world and with ourselves. And I feel like for Auntie Winsom, what she has experienced in her life, she has chosen to use as a field of knowledge, a way of empathizing with other human beings and the sensitivities of trauma. She is deeply steeped in a spiritual knowing that's grounded in care.
Winsom is through and through a multidisciplinary artist. So whether it was through silk screening or designing clothing, cloth, whether it was objects making or installation work, painting, drawing, her works often come as a dream.
I write my dreams down. When I wake up, I write my dreams down, I read it don't make sense, I put the book away. And if I start getting dreams like this, one after the other, and keywords I will look at. And then I do research. I do, like for instance, the fans came to me. What are fans for?
She has a deep relationship to the spirit and her spirit, as well as her ancestral spirits. Once you start to look at Winsom's work, and the more engaged you get, the more closer you are to her spirit, and definitely her ideas around the way of life and the way of being and culture, for sure.
I think it was the 70s or 80s when I went to Africa and went to all these countries. I mean, most people don't. You hear about Japan and all these other countries, but actually in Kano, the oldest dye pit in the world is there. I got to tell you the story because as I was watching, I said, I just want to try. And then tried, could I just go into the indigo dye? And while I was doing, all these men came over and started looking and watching. And then they started peeing in the dye pit. And I thought they were very, very upset at me for being in there and stuff. Turn out they were, the uric acid was what helped to set the dye. So I had my hand in thousands and thousands and thousand years of pee. That was a liquid to set the dye. Well, it's kind of interesting, and I learned to do indigo in the old-fashioned way. Everything I learned in Africa was the old traditional way. It influenced it in the sense that I didn't let anybody tell me what I was doing wasn't art. Because I would get that sometimes, like, you can't just wait for a dream and stuff like that. And that's what I'm doing. And so I became so sure of myself that nobody could rock me anyway. So my art, I don't care if you don't like it. It may be for somebody else, not you. Because all my work has turned out since then is connected to somebody.
As I'm visualizing Winsom's work in my mind, I feel a stillness, a calm, a quiet, and a sacredness in the moment. And that's the energy that I feel when I'm right in front of her work.
I kind of knew that all along, from a very early age, that I came to do art and to be protector of children. Those are the two things I know I came to do.
I met her in the summer of 1994. She helped put me on a path which has been an ongoing journey since I was 20 years old. So it's almost 30 years that I have kept this relationship with her, and she's very dear to me.
I think of many things when I think of Auntie Winsom's ability to mentor in the way that she does. So think with when you are living yourself, like when you as a practitioner are embodying your desires, your questions, your curiosities about practice, then you don't have to project that onto anybody else. This is one thing that I've learned from her. If I'm living my life, then I don't need to live my mentee's life.
Her practice really is about that, is about the deepened self-awareness in her life. And whether it's through her connection to spirituality, or connection to community, or connection to the artist community, the point being is that it just helps endear and really point the arrow back to yourself. The more you know about yourself, the stronger you are as an artist.
I believe each one should teach one. So if you know something, pass it on. So helping, though, I want them to know that there's somebody who care about them, but it's not so much the artwork for me with them. I mean, for them it's the artwork probably, but for me it's letting them know that there is somebody that cares.
I have been so fortunate to have these Black women who have been in my life for a long period of time to support my growth and development as an artist and as a human being. And Winsom is one of those people. And to learn from her leadership and her mentorship, and to also be exposed to her art, and to also be introduced to the idea of art, visual art making as a political tool, as a social tool, as a spiritual tool, as a personal tool, as a tool of self-expression. And so that time, that very first time together with her, really laid the foundation for a fertile soil around the dynamism of art.
I haven't met anybody who's not wearing a mask. Right now, your mask is the cameraman and a documentary person, but actually there's other sides to you. We all have other sides, but maybe they're not so as separate as mine is. You know, when you're at home, you're one way. If you have kids, you're one way with the kids and stuff like that. And in the general public, it's not, who you see here is not the person that's at home. Partly it was, I was agonizing over myself. Who am I really? Because I was having difficulties with who I was. Because sometimes I felt I just didn't know if I wanted to be me, who I was and stuff. And then I realized that I was wearing a lot of different masks. Not only a mask of Winsom, but a mask of being a mother, a wife, and all the hurts that I've had and all the discriminations and everything that has ever happened to me make me wear a mask. And I usually watch people to see, okay, which mask should I put on now? And I realize maybe I need to just put out the mask out there.
I think the art world is missing indigenous knowledge systems embedded in the fabric of the art industry. That is what it's missing. Because when you look at an artist like Winsom, who is working within these diasporized indigenous knowledge systems, whose art is working all at once, philosophically, is working socio-politically, is working socially, is working spiritually, is working intellectually, is working to challenge all the isms and schisms while informing our humanity. How incredible would it be if the art world were to be informed by that kind of making? And not only to be informed by it, but to celebrate it. To actually celebrate it. You know, there is so much to learn from an artist like Winsom.
You know, someone like Winsom should be celebrated across the country. Western art is catching up to her. She doesn't really need to do anything. She just is the way she is, and she always has been committed to that in terms of her identity and her practice. And that is something that the Western art world, the Canadian art world is learning from her. She's leading that. And I think that change is happening as we are talking. And it's about time.